Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about new public administration, but before explaining the new public administration, I need to put new public administration in a context. If you remember from a macroeconomic perspective, I have explained two important economic crises. The first one is 1929 Great Economic Depression and 1973 oil crisis. Oil crisis had huge impact on public administration, primarily with the influence of neoliberalism. Managerialism became highly popular. But before explaining managerial perspective, before explaining public choice and new public management, we need to explain new public administration because there was another response to the oil crisis. Time of turbulence. Why it's a time of turbulence from an economic perspective? Because of the oil crisis. But there were also other social aspects of crisis. During the crisis, public administration was believed that it was irrelevant. It was out of touch with the current critical issues and problems. Public administration discipline was criticized on the basis of disinterest towards critical issues. What sort of movements we're talking about? For example, civil rights movement. So there was a fight from Black African American citizens for greater equality. I have a dream that all men are created equal, said Martin Luther King. Vietnam War. It had huge impact on public administration, and it caused actually public administration to lose its credibility. Students were protesting against government. Women's liberation movement. They were fighting for greater equality for women. The motto you may remember, the personal is the political. The war on poverty. President Lyndon Johnson initiated extensive legislation for a war on poverty. In this context, you may give meaning to new public administration because new public administration movement is a response to this unrest. And it is believed that there was a crisis in public administration as well, not only in the economy, not only in society, but also within public administration. The first one is credibility crisis. No one believed that public administration can solve the problems of the public. There was an unfavorable public attitude toward public administration. The second point was related to normative crisis. There was a gradual displacement of the basic public norms of public administration by the market norms of private management, and it has paved the way for managerial approaches to be popular, especially after Reagan and Thatcher administration. But again, managerial perspective is not the only response. Yes, it was the most popular response, I accept that, but it was not the only response given within the discipline of public administration. New public administration was the alternative response given within public administration discipline. The origin of the public movement can be found in 1968 at Syracuse University under the patronage of Dwight Waldo. We have already read his article in this course. The influence of Waldo is very clear. According to New Public Movement, public administration is not value-free, but value-laden. And we can remember from Waldo that the main value of public administration should be democracy. There is no such a thing that politics administration is strictly separated. Waldo was also rejecting politics administration dichotomy. Public administration and business administration are not equal to each other. There is no universally valid public administration principle. They reject generalism. They reject the universal application of administration in both private administration and public administration. According to New Public Administration movement, administrators are not neutral and they should not be neutral. So there are two propositions. The first one is empirical proposition, which argues that administrators are not neutral, and second one is normative proposition. According to New Public Administration, administrators should be value-laden. What should be the basic value? The basic value should be the social equity according to New Public Administration. And this important dimension takes precedence over efficiency economy. The primary question to be asked should be, does this service enhance social equity? Before anything else, we should ask this question. Social equity rejects mechanical explanation of efficiency. Then we should revise the definition of efficiency as well. We should ask, efficiency for who? Economical for whom? Equity becomes important. I quote Fredrickson, social equity would be a criterion for effectiveness in public administration, in the same way that efficiency, economy, productivity, and other criteria are used. He adds one important dimension, social equity. He does not reject other principles, but he gives priority to social equity principle. That is very important. Equity in government services. Responsibility for decision and program implementation for public managers. Responsiveness to the needs of citizens. Here, when we mention equity principle, we also underline the principle of responsibility of public managers. Secondly, we underline responsiveness to the needs of citizens. This reminds us political perspectives. Remember Rosenblum's article? According to Rosenblum's article, there were three approaches. The first one was managerial approach, the second one was political approach, and the third one was legal approach. So in this sense, in the context of Rosenblum's article, New Public Administration can be given an example for the political perspective. Efficiency versus equity. I argued that equity is not rejecting efficiency principle. I also argued that equity takes the precedence over efficiency principle. Here we see this clearly. If efficiency clashes with other principles such as representation, such as equity, according to the New Public Administration movement, according to Fredrickson, we should choose equity. We should choose representation. We cannot simply say, oh, participation is time consuming, it is too costly to bear the costs. No. No matter if it is economical or not, no matter if it is efficient or not, we should choose the representation principle. Efficiency versus equity. As you can see from the caricature, you can easily realize the difference between equity and equality. New public administration does not support equality. New public administration supports equity, justice. In contrast to equal treatment for all, equity principle argues that benefits should be greater for the most disadvantaged. Here we see another priority. Priority is given to the disadvantaged people. Priority is given to the disadvantaged citizens. If you support an equity principle within public administration resources, public expenditures should be spent primarily for the sake of the disadvantaged people. A very practical example. Imagine a city council that has just been given a grant of $10 million for street improvement. There are three alternatives to spend this money. First, you can spend this money on the basis of self-interest. The city council members may spend this money for their own neighborhoods. Second, they can choose equality approach, impartial approach, that they can spend this money for all parts of the city, regardless of their need. But if you choose equity principle, then the city council should spend this money for those neighborhoods most in need of street improvements. Finally, I would like to explain this point. According to new public administration, you should primarily ask this question: does the service enhance social equity? How can I understand that I should provide services to some neighborhood? Firstly, I will check for a need. If there is a need, I should provide service to this neighborhood. Secondly, I must provide fundamental basic needs to guarantee minimum living standards for all of my citizens. Thirdly, I should not discriminate people. But that does not necessarily mean that equality. No, we're talking about equity. Equity means equal treatment for equal status. I will treat disadvantaged people equally, but I will give priority to those disadvantaged people. Thank you for listening. I hope it helped you to understand the basic ideas of new public administration. Next week, I'm going to talk about managerial perspective, including public choice and new public management. Thank you for listening. See you later.